Are you tired of playing the same old boring licks time and time again? Maybe you should think about following the drummer.
Dude, do you even know what key this is in?
As a guitar player, it can be really easy to fall into the same old comfortable patterns and playing the same licks and fills and lead riffs again. And that's what this whole series, or this whole playlist on my channel is about, the Rutbuster series. Ways to break out of doing what you're always doing and find a way to do something new. And today we're going to explore one of my favorite rut busting techniques, and that is to listen to what your drummer is doing, or the drum part if you're using drum libraries, say from a program like Easy Drummer, and listen to what's going on there and use that to inform what you're going to play on the guitar. In this specific lesson, I'm going to talk about following a drum fill and using it as a guitar fill, or like a little lead run to connect like a chord part or a repetitive riff from one to another. So like in most rock songs, you'll notice that you have a drum part where the drummer will play 3 measures of a pattern in a 4/4 song, 3 measures of a pattern, and then on the 4th measure, they'll do either a whole measure fill, or like the end of the drum part will be like a little fill leading up to the crash cymbal that starts the repeat of the pattern again. Everything's kind of broken into 4s. Sometimes they wait until the 8th measure, but for the example that we're doing today, I've borrowed my drummer, who you saw in the beginning of the video there, and I had him play 8 measures of drums, 3 measure beat, 1 measure fill, 3 measure beat, and 1 measure fill. Let's just take a listen to the drum beat that he played first, and then we'll talk about how I constructed a part inspired on what he was doing. Pretty talented guy there, huh? So let's talk about how I take that beat and use it to inform what I'm playing. Now, the groove part, if you're kind of writing your own song, you might already have the chords and everything, and you would just be using this rut busting idea for the fill, the lead parts at the end, like the 4th and the 8th measure there. What I'm going to do is write an entire part along with the drums. So you'll see I took his drum beat and it inspires this riff that goes along with the beat. And let me play just a few measures of that so you can see the riff and the beat together and how the bass and the drum, the bass drum and the snare inspire what I'm playing on the guitar. So that's the groove songwriting part of it. And now when we get to the fills part of it, that 4th and 8th measure, normally you're playing a groove like this, you're going to play typical guitar stuff. And that's the kind of stuff I play all the time, the bend on the 3rd string and those kind of pentatonic riffs. I wanted to have the drums get me to think a different way, think outside the pentatonic box, as it were. And you'll see when he does his filler, you saw already, he did this kind of drum roll thing on the snare, and he's going snare to toms. I'm trying to incorporate thinking about the strings as representing different drums that he's playing. So let me play the whole 8 measures of music so you can hear what I did to it, and then we'll come back and look at how I broke it down logically. Right, so that first fill, when you get to the 4th measure, he starts with that kind of drum roll, and I emulate that with that quick picked kind of thing. And I'm going to include tabs for this below, by the way, just so you have all the logic of it in front of you on paper as well. And so this kind of fill is not something I ever would have thought of. So I followed the drums, his hand patterns, with that first part of it. That's just strictly following what his hands are doing from snares to toms. And then I'm using kind of the syncopation of the bass drum and finishing it off with something that's a little bit more typical of what I'd play. That type of thing. Now in the 8th measure, I'm playing a guitar lick fill that is a little more typical of something I would play, but again, very inspired by the locking up with the snare and the bass drum and the accents that he's playing. I never would have played anything that way if I wasn't specifically looking to lock onto the drums. So really what we're getting at here is the idea of looking at or listening to what the drummer is doing. Usually a lot of it is in the snare and the bass drum. You can do the higher notes to lock up with a snare part, a lower note to lock up with a bass pattern. Listen to what that drummer's doing and maybe make an analog, a comparative note or string that you're playing, that every snare hit is that note, every bass drum hit is that note, tom 1 is this note, tom 2 is that note. You can really lock up and create new parts and mix that in a little bit with some stuff you would normally play on guitar, so it's not all completely locked to the drums. And you end up with, well, what we have here, which hopefully inspires you to break out of some ruts that you're in and do things that you wouldn't have thought of before. So guys, I hope this inspired you and leads you to some new ideas of your own and hopefully breaks you out of any ruts that you're in. If you have anything cool that comes out of it, please share in the comments below. I want to hear what people who are seeing these videos come up with and what they get out of it. And if you have any further questions or comments, of course, leave them below too. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And until next time, keep making great music. Hey friends, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. It makes the whole world better.